Welcome to the Adept to the Brush. What I'm going to do now that the Martian iron crust started to cure off on this plague marine Saturnine from my Deathguard, I'm going to take an old brush, so I want to try and get this texture paint in between some of the recesses, apologies for the text alert, and get it into the recesses and spread it around a little bit. Just want the colour to be consistent pretty much everywhere. So I do need to use a brush for this, unfortunately. So I'm using one of my older mankier brushes. I'm not too worried about getting any on the edges of the grey, because we are going to use some pigment powders afterwards. But I'm literally going to come around and dab in this paint. This is the Martian Iron Earth. It's a slightly runnier material than the last one. Hasn't got any of the sand in it. I think it's got a clay binder or something. It's basically a crackle paste, and this will dry into lots of little plates of material. The thicker you leave it, the thicker and bigger the plates tend to get. So the smaller, the thinner the layer, generally the smaller the plates that you get, the bigger the amounts, the bigger the cracks you're going to get. Seems to be the pattern with this material particularly. So I'm going to try and dollop it on a little bit thicker in a few places, mainly at the edge of the base where it will notice more. Not too worried if a little bit gets on the foot, because as I say, we're going to dump some pigment powders on this at the end. Just dropping some into the higher areas. And that will do. So these bases have had a chance to dry off a little bit. Unfortunately, I've decided, looking at it, that one of the bases in particular don't look all that hot. And I'm not particularly happy at the moment, so just finding one of the older brushes. That was the one that we used earlier. I'm not going to put any more Martian Iron Earth on, or Iron Crust. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a little bit of both of them together on desk. I'm going to put this over a few other places, along with some more of this stuff on its own. Sure about the sirens. I don't live in a high crime area, but you do get emergency sirens, unfortunately, as always. Can't do anything about that. So I'm just going to put out a little bit more, because I'm not happy with what's there. I'm going to use the brush to take the rest of this off. So first thing I'm going to do is just smear this around a little bit more. I didn't really think about how this was going to look once it dried. And unfortunately, the way it looks at the moment, it just looks like 3 splotches of stuff. It just needs some reinforcement. some additional material put around it and blend it in. And this stuff's a mixture of the two, so we should get some crackling with both. Again, not worried about marks. So the mixture of the two going on. I'm just trying to blend out what's there. That is a bit excessive. That'll be left to dry off a little bit. Well, just had the camera battery die and just had to change it over, so I took the opportunity to clean water whilst we're at it. So next step is this Valhalla Blizzard. I do need to make sure my tool is clean for this because I don't want Martian iron earth contaminating my white blizzard material. So I do need to make sure that I've got the steel implement clean. So that's cleaned up, taking the Martian iron earth off it, there's none left. So I've done this before, this is part of the tutorial, we'll flag it in the end. I'm going to take some scoops of Valhalla Blizzard and apply it where I want it to look like the wind has blown it up to meet the surface. So this is again how I'm going to disguise some of the gaps that we've still got. So in this lower area down here. That hollow there, particular, catch that bit there, a little bit there. What I'm trying to do is give the impression that the wind has blown the snow up, particularly one side of this ridge in particular. And the way snow swirls around, it tends to gather behind structures as well, just as it swirls around. So I'm going to have a little bit of this. Now, it may look like I'm overdoing this at the moment, but I promise you it's not. It will work out. Just trying to make sure I've got enough in those various areas for what comes next. Turn the base round. At this point I only want a little bit scattered splotches, so interconnected. Just making sure I've got enough in a few of those places where I'm suggesting the wind's going to catch. I'm not going to fill the inner side of the cartouches on there. What I'm going to do is let the next stage do that for me. So this is the same old little basin I've been using. It's already encrusted with the stuff. So I'm going to take several large scoops of this Valhalla Blizzard. Just doing the tutorial. Now I'm just going to add some clean water to it and take a large brush just cleaned and mix that material into like a slurry. And now what I'm going to do is come in and attack where I've already put the snow down to blend the edges out of that material with not just pure water but like a mix of the material plus water already. It tends to help blend out the edges of this snow scatter. I can come in on the cartouche with some, start blending out that edge. Whilst it's still wet, I can move clumps of this material around as I need it. Just go back into the water paste. Yes, at this point it does look horrific. You look at it and think, what the hell have you done? Sorry for the text alert, folks. I promise you this really does work a trick. So I now need to leave those two to dry. Once they're dry, we can carry on further. But what I will do now, just because that has cured off enough and we've got enough on there that I don't need to worry about anything else, there's no paint on my fingers, I'm gonna glue this bad boy's legs in place. So we'll come back and have a look at them when they've dried. Alright, they've had a time to cure off for a little bit. So now that they're done, I'm going to take some black paint. Just got wet earlier. Just get rid of that. Don't want any gummies. Put some black paint out. Do the trims. A decent size brush. So I'm going to correct those little defects there. And all I'm doing, as you've seen many painters do before, I'm just going to quickly black rim, the base. I may have to give this two coats to get it smooth. Well, that's that base done. Now, so this guy again, technique same as what I'd do with edge highlighting. I'm using the edge of the brush, not the tip of the brush. And we had a bit of an accident, taking him out to dry. He fell over and fell off onto the floor, which I will take as a blessing in disguise, because I got too excited and started assembling them before I painted all the bits that I needed to. So in some ways it worked out for the better. So we've still got his underside and his shoulders cracked off in the drop, but I've still made my life more difficult because I've got these cables underneath his arm that I need to try and get with some colour. Sounds like it's raining quite heavily all of a sudden, folks. Sure if you can hear that on camera. It might be really difficult for you to see what I'm doing, but I'm just basically trying to pick out the edge of that umbilical cable that's on that side that's under his arm, because unfortunately I'd made it more difficult to paint. So let's do the one on the other side whilst we're at it. Hopefully that's neat enough. More than that, I don't need to worry about those cables because they won't be seen again. But the real whoopsie was the abdomen. So I'm going to need some different colours for this. I'm going to start with Cadian Flesh Tone. This is still viable. Just put some on my palette. Move it so you can actually see the palette. Just in visual range. There you go. So I'm going to take Cadian Flesh Tone. Add some Wraithbone. About 2/3 of one to the other. Tin it down. This is what I'm going to base coat the abdominal section with. Yes, I don't want the Rue comments. It does look like it's in the very wrong place. So I'll try and avoid the purple that I've already done. Turn the model over, just make sure I've got some of this colour in the back at the start. Now it's obviously infected, it's not a happy bunny, so I'm going to put a little bit more Canadian flesh tone down, but I'm also going to look for one of my other darker flesh colours. Don't want to go straight Demon it hide. Something else, there it is, Bugman's Glow. I want a sicklier pink. So mix this back in to the previous layer, and now what I'm going to do, turn the model upside down and move from where I've just been towards the bottom. I'm probably going to have to do some blending at some point. Again, to the back of the model, bring this colour forward, and then very lastly go for some neat Bugman's Glow, thin it down. That's going to be the bottom base colour, and again in from the bottom of the model, just the very tips into the furthest recess. Right to the front. Don't need to worry too much about the transition on the back. But that'll do. And then unfortunately there's a disgusting little pile of maggots coming out of the inside, the side of his guts. This bit is all full of maggots. So again, going back to the Morghast bone, we'll colour that in a little bit better later. So that looks very pastel at the moment, but we're going to put a couple of glazes over the top of that that will darken it down, and we'll hopefully look at more flesh, make it look more flesh tone. What I want to tackle now is that glyph on the chest. I'm going to go quite bright to start with, quite punchy, using Angel Green by Army Painter. I'm just going to go round the glyph on his chest. Sorry if you can't see this on camera, folks. I'm going to try and get this quite focused in for my old eyes. So you can see it. So they're now in there suitably. I want to highlight the rim of that with something that's suitable. So where have I put the camo green? Or my Elysian green as it is now. So just getting a little bit of Elysian green out. I'm just going to hit the edges of that. So it's just a hint of Elysian green to that emblem. Now I think the flesh is probably going to be dry, so whilst I'm waiting for that, I'm just going to hit the skulls, which is a little bit more brushed bone. I'm just going to quickly hit some of the skulls up rather than having them look metallic. Same with these ones. So just redefine those skulls a little bit. I don't need to go any lighter than that because otherwise it just blends into the armour. So I do want them to stand out a little bit. So what I'm looking for at the moment is one Lamia medium. So I need some Lamia medium down. I'll put this in the top because I'm not going to make very much of it. I don't want to pollute this with some dry colours. So I'm going to take some Guilliman Flesh Tone, wherever it's gone. Seems to be hiding at the moment. There we are. I'm now just going to glaze all over that bit. Including the maggots, with a little bit of this glimmer flesh tone that's been mixed down with some lamium medium to try and stop it looking so otherwise what ends up happening, it ends up going shiny, and I don't want this top bit shiny. I'm prepared to have some of it go shiny, but not at the top. So it's all on the tentacle, all on the intestine. And at the back. Same on the back. Try and make sure I get it in the recesses at the bottom of the guts that are spilled out, whilst at the same time trying to avoid getting it on the armour. It's got a little bit of a pink hint to this, which is useful for these intestines at the moment, as we'll come back to that later. So that's now starting to look quite virulent, quite nasty. I'm going to go and get them dried off a little bit, and when I come back, hopefully we can put the next glaze over the top and it will start to look really quite disgusting. So what we've done is glazed over some blood for the blood clot over some of the flesh tones that we've used, and now I am actually happy that I can stick him down properly this time. We're going to use some sheepy glue. I'm going to do the same with the shoulders, as soon as they cracked off earlier. Maybe there's too much paint in the way for adhesion, so we're going to try a little bit of super glue. Hopefully that will do it. So having done that, I'm probably going to use some weathering powders on him now, just to show you where we've got to. Went and done some weathering powders off camera, purely because don't like them in the house, they make a lot of mess. Consequently, been done outside in the utility room, which I use as additional storage. So we've added some weathering compounds on there. Doesn't show up particularly brilliant at the moment, but he's had some pigment powders added, and then that's been sealed in using some Minotaurian varnish just to seal it. So that's where I'm going to leave it today. If you've liked what you've seen, please like and subscribe, help my channel grow, and I shall be back tomorrow with something different.